With less than 3 weeks to go, we are entering the final stretch before Solo: A Star Wars Story. Today I'll be taking you through everything you need to know, from characters to planets to expected plot points. I'll be talking about things officially announced by Lucasfilm through marketing materials, no leaks or anything like that. But if you want to go into the movie knowing as little as possible, you might want to skip this video. It should go without saying that Han Solo, Lando Calrissian, Chewbacca, and the Millennium Falcon will all be in this movie. But one of the very first things I want to make sure I touch on is that Alden Ehrenreich's portrayal of Han is not going to be a carbon copy of the Han we met in A New Hope. The film takes place about 10 years earlier. Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote the script for Solo, Empire, Return of the Jedi, and The Force Awakens, has written almost everything we know about the character, and he wanted to explore what made Han so jaded and cynical in Episode 4. Han in this movie has been described as more idealistic and optimistic. He seems less confident to me in the trailers, more like he's overcompensating than actually sure of himself. Give the character a chance to transform into Han, and don't expect him to be exactly what we remember from his first appearance in the cantina. And by the way, that's a nice transition into something else I want to mention. Something I read all the time is, who asked for this movie though? I get that question, I do, because when it was announced, I was like, I'm not all that excited compared to the premise behind Rogue One, for example. The thing is, Lawrence Kasdan asked for this movie. The man has written most of my favorite movies of all time. That was what had me at least intrigued from the start. The guy who has done the most to make Han what he is today felt that this story was worth telling, and that alone convinced me to have an open mind. Let's move on to Lando and the Millennium Falcon. It has a very new look, which has perplexed some fans. Technically, it did appear in Revenge of the Sith, and now all of a sudden it looks different? Lando did not buy the ship new off the assembly line, even though it looks pristine. That's just the way he is. Lando is a stylish guy, and he wants to travel in style. The Falcon isn't a freighter to him, it's a bachelor pad, a place to entertain. In the recent book Last Shot, Han described the ship as a maniac's immaculate Cape Museum when it was under Lando's ownership. The book goes on to say that after Han won the Falcon, he immediately set out to scuff it up and make it a place where he could feel comfortable. Hence Lando's reaction to seeing the Falcon on Cloud City, "What have you done to my ship?" Speaking of Han winning the Falcon, let's talk about that. Han famously won the ship from Lando in a game of sabacc. We know we'll be seeing a game or two, and while it's not confirmed, I fully expect to see Lando lose the ship in this movie. But I wouldn't expect that game to be very straightforward at all. The Star Wars comic, almost 3 years ago now, hinted that Han and Lando both cheated in that game. What's more, Last Shot hinted at it even further, with Han claiming he won it fair and square-ish, but also openly accusing Lando of cheating, a fact that he did not deny. We could see a very fun game between the two of them as they try to outwit each other. I also think it's very likely that Han's gold dice will be involved. The Force Awakens Visual Dictionary tells us that Han used those dice to win the Falcon in a game of Corellian Spike, which is a special version of sabacc involving dice. I wonder if he will introduce the dice as a random element that Lando will not be ready for, and we all know how lucky Han can be. Moving on, let's talk about Chewbacca. We know Han had a hand in saving him from slavery, so we should see that. We've also seen Chewie with another Wookiee. I expect that to be his wife Mala, or maybe his son Lumpawaru. I've said before that I think it would be interesting if Han wound up not only saving Chewie, but also the rest of his family from slavery, which would add more weight and meaning to the life debt Chewie swears. At some point, it looks like we'll see Han pilot his way through the Kessel Run, which he famously brags about completing in under 12 parsecs. So far, everything we know about the run is very ambiguous, including whether or not what Han claims is true. I'm expecting there to be some truth to what Han says, but again, it might not be as straightforward as we've been led to believe. From what I can tell, the bulk of the story will involve a train heist against the Empire. Han, Chewie, and Lando will join a group of other characters on the job. Kira is an old childhood friend of Han's. They grew up together on Corellia, which we'll get to read about in the book Most Wanted, which comes out the same day as the movie. Beckett and Val likely serve in the Empire with Han until they all turn to a life of crime. Beckett will be a mentor of sorts for Han. We don't know much at all about Val, and Rio Durant is an Ardenian pilot referred to as good-natured and up for any challenge. The final member of the crew is L337, Lando's droid friend, and I do mean friend. The book Last Shot does not show them in a classic droid-master relationship. They are very much equals. L3 is described as a self-made droid, quite literally. She's modified herself over the years using the parts of old, broken droids to improve herself. It sounds like the train heist will be at the request of Dryden Voss, Paul Bettany's character. He's the leader of a criminal syndicate called the Crimson Dawn. He has no relation to the Jedi Master Quinlan Voss of the Clone Wars. Just like the name Antilles or any number of names in real life, Voss is just shared by two unrelated people. Han and crew won't be after whatever is on that train unopposed. The Cloud Rider gang, led by the pirate Infus Nest, will be after it as well. Not much at all is known about the character or the gang right now. And finally, for characters, this is Therm Scissorpunch. He's your new favorite character. He's a lobster man, and I assume he can punch you with his scissor-like hands, and he's wonderful. Next up, I want to mention a few of the planets we know we'll be seeing. Corellia is Han's homeworld. It's a very industrial planet and looks to be responsible for the construction of Imperial Star Destroyers. Mimban is a planet Han recalls serving on in the book Last Shot. It was introduced in Star Wars Legends as a swampy jungle planet. The Clone Wars mention a unit called the Mud Jumpers that were deployed there, and in the movie we will see a specialized stormtrooper unit called Mud Troopers. And Vandor is the mountainous planet that will be the site of the train heist. And the last thing I want to talk about today are the new variants on old designs we can expect to see. In addition to the Mud Trooper, Range Troopers can be seen on Vandor. They're described as frontier soldiers meant to protect the Empire as it expands. Imperial Patrol Troopers will be seen on Corellia, and they basically replace local police. There are also Mimban-specific stormtroopers that mostly look like camouflaged, muddy, normal stormtroopers, but their helmets are a little different. The TIE Fighter is getting a new variant simply called the Heavy TIE Fighter. It's described as a reinforced starfighter with more powerful laser cannons. And there's also a new walker called the AT-DT, but we don't know what the D stands for yet. With that, I think you should be more than prepared for Solo: A Star Wars Story on May 25th. But if you have any further questions, please ask them in the comments, and I'll do my best to check in and respond if I have the answers. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out my Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.